Hello, I'm Bob Ganzak, and this is Motivation U, the podcast. Welcome to Motivation U, the podcast. My name is Bob Ganzak, coming to you live from here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, inside the Coach's Podcast Room. A couple of things coming up. We have a Dale Carnegie class starting next Tuesday. Now, it's at the Caldwell Banker offices off Northwest 39th this time. So please, you can go to jacksonville.dalecarnegie.com to sign up. Go ahead and sign up there, register, get into that class. We still have a couple of seats left. It's going to be a big class, so we're going to have a lot of fun in there. I'm trying to bring in some more graduate assistants so that we have enough for all of the individuals, but we'd love to have you. So please, jacksonville.dalecarnegie.com. This podcast, you can hear it on so many different platforms. Facebook's live, YouTube. Where else do we have this? It's all over the place. Apple, this and that, and everything else. Google Podcasts. I don't know. There's like 39 different places. Today, my guest. I'm really excited about this. Former student of mine from years ago, so we're going to find out how much she's been practicing those principles of Mr. Carnegie's. Yet, also somebody that has walked in a lot of different worlds of leadership as far as corporate and hospitals and a university and law firm. My guest today is Michelle Moore with UF Health. And Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I know you do. It was like a twist of the arm,
yes.
and boom.
You are very convincing.
Well, you just work. Your work has been incredible. And I think it's about 4 or 5 years ago that you went through the Dale Carnegie class.
It's actually been longer than that.
Really?
So I think it was maybe around 2014.
Oh, wow. So 9 years.
Or 50, yeah.
9
so
years now.
it has been a little bit longer. So yeah, testing my my knowledge on the principles. That'll be a trick that we'll see what I can retain.
So where did you grow up? Where did life begin for Michelle Moore?
So I'm originally from Winter Haven, which is a small city pretty much right in Central Florida. It's about an hour from Orlando, hour from Tampa. And my dad was actually born and raised in Winter Haven, which is very unusual. He is a Floridian through and through. And so I went to high school there, and then I came to UF, and that's where I went to college. I'm a huge Gator fan. And then went back to Polk County after I graduated and did a couple of jobs, and then ended up in Charlotte, North Carolina. And after that, I went back to Winter Haven for a little bit and then came back to Gainesville, and I've been here ever since.
What were those early jobs? Now, your major was what at the University of Florida?
So it was through the College of Journalism, and it was a public relations degree.
And what were the first couple of jobs out of college that you did?
So when I was in college, I actually, so this was right before I had declared a major, or I was thinking about going into telecommunications. I really wanted to be a sports broadcaster. I love sports, and so I thought that was going to be the right fit. And then right after my sophomore year of college, I went home for the summer, and one of my best friends, her dad was the superintendent of schools for Polk County. And so I just had a part-time job there during the summer and ended up working in the community relations office there. And both of the women that worked in that office were UF grads and both had PR degree. One had a journalism degree, one had a PR degree. And that pretty much shaped my future.
Wow.
They were amazing people. I am still in touch with them today. Both were mentors. I ended up working for both of them later after I had graduated. So they really shaped it. And I went back and I was like, you know what? I want a PR degree. That's what I want to do. And because I knew that it would be something where I'd never be doing the same thing every day. So, because, we did special events, I did writing, I did, internal communications, creating budgets, just marketing for the school system and media relations. So it was just a little bit of everything, and came back, went into PR, and I haven't looked back since.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, what years were you at UF?
So I was there from 88 until 92.
Okay. So that was pre-national championships and everything.
It was. So, a fun fact that I love talking about. So, I was actually a Gator getter for the UF football team, and I was there during Coach Spurrier's first year. So, it was pretty, yeah, it was his first year. So, it was pretty amazing. And so, I was a Gator getter for 2 years. And
what is that?
So it was a recruiter for the football team.
Okay.
So they would have, and things have changed now, but we were the ones, we always wore orange cowboy hats, and we sat in the south end zone. And so anytime a high school player would come up, we would take them around campus. We would talk to them about the University of Florida. We would talk to them about UF football. And then we would take them throughout the facilities. We'd sit with them during the game, answer any questions, and then we would go with them afterwards. And there would always be some kind of a demonstration, whether it was, something in the weight room, one of the skills that the football players had to do. And so it was just a lot of fun. And then we got to go on one trip. And it was so funny because people always tried to buy our orange cowboy hats. And so that was something that, the coordinator was like, you cannot sell your cowboy hat. So it was a lot of fun.
There was no eBay back then.
Yeah, there was not. But I made some wonderful friends who I'm, still in touch with today. A couple of them were in my sorority, and I loved that. So it was a lot of fun.
And here you are.
I know.
It's
come full circle.
30 years later, we're sitting in this place.
And actually, Amy and Lisa, Coach Spurrier's two daughters, were in my sorority.
Wow.
So,
okay.
yeah.
So
it was so interesting too, because when he was. So we had a house phone at the sorority, and they had to sit us down because it was when he was deciding whether he was going to stay at Duke or come to UF. And they said, look, people are going to be calling the house. And they were asking for Amy or Lisa. And so they kind of gave us, an overview and said, you can't say anything. Don't talk about Coach Spurrier. Don't say anything about the girls. And ESPN called the house. I mean, it was such a weird time just to watch what they were going through, because it was such a big deal. And I don't think I understood at the time how big it was, because I knew he had won the Heisman, but that was way before me. So, so it was like, oh, okay, so we're getting a coach. And then, when UF, just the fun and gun and everything just exploded after that, I was like, oh, now I get it.
Now you get it.
Yeah.
That's why everybody was interested.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, my daughter graduated in 2008. So she got those national championships in the Tim Tebow years. Mm-hmm. My stepdaughter graduated 2022. So hers a little more lean as far as sports were concerned, a lot of challenges. Early on in your life, we're talking with Michelle Moore of UF Health today. Early on in your life, what were some of the major leadership influences that helped shape your life? Were they teachers, coaches, parents, uncles, aunts? What were some of the ones that stand out?
Well, I think probably the first leaders, obviously, that I had were my parents, and I admire and respect my parents so much, and just watch them just be such hard workers and self motivated, and they always just followed through with what they were going to say. And I knew that they were admired and respected by their coworkers and other colleagues. And so, I think that was certainly something. I laugh and joke and say, well, both of my parents are type A, so what did you expect from me? So, and then I think it went into, teachers and different sponsors for like school organizations. I was a dancer all throughout from the time I was probably 5, and then was on drill team and everything in high school. And so there were always teachers that were mentors that you just learned and you respected and you appreciated them. And I think, some of my relatives, my aunt was the director of social services for Winter Haven Hospital. My uncle actually was an assistant superintendent for the school system. So seeing them in their jobs and just being surrounded by that, because I could tell, how I learned leadership skills from them, but I also learned that you could have fun and that humor could be a huge part of it. Yep. And so, but I would definitely say that it was teachers and then just my family.
Yeah, I think waking up with a smile on your face is the best way you can start a day.
There's no question.
If you can do that on a consistent basis, it changes. I was, before I left town this morning to come down here, I was getting some gas, and a gentleman came, just a huge smile came up to me, and he said, good morning. He's throwing some trash out right next to where I was pumping the gas. And I said, I love that smile, And I said, you can share that with everybody all day long.
That's true.
And that's just one of those things that we don't realize sometimes as leaders. We carry the burden of the world on our shoulders. And as we walk through the halls of our offices and businesses, people look at us.
They do. And
what's wrong with
right?
Fill in the blank,
And I don't think, and that was a very important lesson for me to learn personally, because sometimes, if I just had a lot going on, I was very determined, and I would get from A to B, and I needed to check these things off my list, and I didn't realize how people were looking at me, and so I realized, okay, even if you're stressed, you definitely need to remember eyes are on you. People are looking to you to see how you react to different things. And so that's something very important to remember.
Mm-hmm. And one of the other things, if you're sitting at your desk and people in business really don't want to take up your time.
Right.
If those individuals that just want to stand around and talk, maybe we need to, move on from those individuals. But if somebody takes the time to walk up to you and you're at your desk, it costs nothing to turn, give them 2 ears and a smile for 30 seconds.
Right.
You don't know that what they're going through in their office. They might just need that little turn to get their day going on the right way. And if you just stare at your screen and you don't look up and you don't answer them, that's a challenge.
It is, yeah.
And I'm not talking about wasting people's time. I'm talking about acknowledging that another human exists and that they may need just 10 seconds of your time at that moment. It might just be a smile or hello or thank you or whatever. But
I think people want to be heard, and you, like you said, you just listening to them for just those few seconds, it does something to them, and it makes them understand that you really are, somebody that's there to support them and to help them. Yeah. So
I will admit, when I'm working in my office at home, I talk to my dog. Buffett doesn't answer me.
If he starts, then...
but she sits there and she's like, she's a great listener.
Yeah.
And but sometimes you just need to vocalize what's on your mind and to share something, and you get it out of your world. So that's an important part of that. You and I connected when you were with HCA hospitals in Lake City,
Correct.
how did you get there? How did that transformation from the other places and when you graduated, how did you get to HCA?
So it's really interesting because I think so many different things. It's from networking. It's from people that you know, and so that's kind of how it happened. So when I got the job at Shands. So, because I've been, this is actually my third time now with UF Health or Shands. And so the first time that I started was in December of 1998, and it was still Shands Healthcare at the time. And somebody that was on our marketing and PR team, it was Shane Spivey at the time. She is now Shane Beatles. And Shane and I became instant friends. And we joke now that she's my brunette sister. And so, I mean, and that's what, my parents call her their brunette daughter and different things. And we had so much in common. We were both only children. We'd both gone to UF. We both were huge sports fans. She also was a Gator getter. So we clicked immediately. And so Shane and I worked together for the whole time that I was there for 6.5 years, and then I left to go work for Exactech, and Shane was still there. Well, eventually Shane moved, because she's from Lake City originally, and she went to work for Lake City Medical Center, and which was part of HCA. And so when she approached me and let me know that the director of marketing and PR position was open at Lake City Medical Center. And so it was because of that connection that I had originally made at Shands is what got me. It was what got me that opportunity. So she let me know about it. And even the director of HR at the time was somebody that I had met through Shane, because he had actually worked for Shands at Lakeshore. So, and then Steve Nelson, who, is amazing man. He was the director of rehab at Shands at Lakeshore. So he had also been with Shands. So there were a few people that we laughed because
went that way.
Exactly. That's how I ended up there. In 2012 is when I started at the medical center up there.
Because it was just after that we put together a Dale Carnegie class. I remember I went to I was living in St. Augustine at the time, and I went to Lake City to do an engagement workshop. And I believe April was the HR person at that time. And then Jill and then Susan Martin Reynolds.
Right, Susan.
They all came to that event, and they really, then we connected, and they became a big client of mine. But as I told them last Friday when I was over there speaking, this is home to me.
Right.
I love being there.
Right.
It's absolutely, because we had a great experience in that class.
We really did.
There was probably, I think in those first 3 classes, we did like 65 or 70 of the cream of the crop leadership there. What was it like working in corporate hospital for HCA? Especially, when you were at Shands, it was the big dog. And now all of a sudden you're in Lake City, a little different mentality as far as the corporate world. What was that like?
Well, I think the biggest thing, and I'm actually really glad that I was able to work for a for-profit healthcare system, because it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about business and how things work behind the scenes. Because when I had been at Shands originally, I knew all about Shands at UF and the regional hospitals that we had, but I mainly focused on just the PR and marketing that was kind of happening within our walls, and not necessarily the overall business model of what was going on. And so obviously with any hospital that you work at, it's taking care of patients. That's what you've got to do. But because of Lake City Medical Center being a smaller hospital, I was involved in a lot of the executive leadership meetings where I learned so much more about the business side of things and how that all worked, and just getting patients in and out, and ER wait times, and so many different things, and even like the reason why sometimes it was harder to turn a room over, it wasn't necessarily because the patient wasn't ready for discharge. It was because there was nobody there to pick that patient up. And so, and we couldn't, you don't just set somebody
So
outside, right? Here, you just sit here and
water
wait.
them every once in a while
Right.
and hope they grow.
Right. So I learned all of those little nuances that happened, and continuing to work with Shane, because Shane and I worked side by side a lot. She is in the business development side of things and physician relations. And so she would work with some of the different, physicians and ensure that everything was running smoothly for them. And also just, getting people into the hospital. And so just seeing how that side worked and understanding
the
it.
mechanics of the business
Correct.
end of it. And you were going through incredible growth there at that time. When I remember hospitals when I was a child, and if my grandfather was sick or if we had to go to the hospital, there was hardly ever any construction going on. I mean,
There was construction going on every day.
but you had it here at Shands. Just the spreading out of campus, Gainesville, all over, and then you went and had it at Lake City Medical Center.
We opened a new ER, a new cath lab, and then built a third floor onto the hospital while I was the 4 years that I was there.
It was amazing.
It was a lot, yeah.
And the stress that was on the staff. I think of Kirk Churchill's the food side of it.
Right.
Just there, it was incredible that was going on there. You had a very charismatic leader back then for when you first went there in Mark Robinson.
Correct.
Somebody that we both admire and like and
Yes.
stay connected to even to this day. What were the qualities and characteristics of a leader that you enjoyed about Mark's leadership style?
I think mainly he was transparent. You didn't feel like things were hidden. And he just had, and I think it was his charisma, it was his personality. He was very outgoing. And so he made people feel comfortable around him. And he was a hard worker. And he cared about the people, at the hospital, and he cared about the community and did different things, within the community. And so it was just something where, I liked him immediately, and he was just somebody that was easy to be around. You never felt like there were pretenses or anything like that. And so I think it was just admiring what he accomplished, just as far as the hospital goals, meeting budget, different things like that, but also that you could just talk to him. He was a jokester, it was just easy to carry on conversations, and he made you, feel comfortable and everything. And so I think the leaders kind of gravitated towards him, and it was just it was a positive experience.
That going away party was, I was so thankful that I was invited to that. That
Yes.
was, that was just so nice to see that. I still remember the day that he got that new BMW, that custom-made BMW.
Right, yes.
And he was like a kid in a candy store that day.
And he never took it out of the garage.
No.
it was his prized possession, but nobody ever saw it. So
one of the challenges that I saw with that, Mark and I talked about this. We went out and played golf a couple of times together, and we talked about this one subject, was he knew that he had basically a 2-year time period there. HCA, I don't know if this is policy, but it seems what they do in the smaller areas, they're growing leaders down the road for their bigger properties.
Right.
And so they give them opportunities to work in markets like Lake City, get that under their belt, and then they move them to a Tallahassee, and then they move them to a Salt Lake City, Utah, which was Mark's movement.
right.
But it had to be tough on you all, because every 2 years you knew you were going to get a new leader.
So I was there for 4 years, so I had 2 leaders within those 4 years and an interim. And so, but I know with Shane and her time, I think she had like 6 or 7. And so that's a lot, and so because people do bring in different styles, and you have to learn, what their expectations are and how they go about goal setting and wanting their, leadership team to meet objectives, and just learning personalities. And so it does, because that was something where there was definitely a change, with the leadership. So
From one Mark to the next Mark.
right, exactly. So yeah, it was like, okay, your name must be Mark if you come here, and but it was also nice too, because I know under Mark Robinson, our chief nursing officer was Rick Nagler, and Rick was a great guy, and he had left HCA but came back and actually was CEO at the medical center.
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
I spoke there a couple of times while Rick was in charge. We never got reconnected and things, but Rick had left right before, because I can't think of the lady who was the new CNO.
Yeah, I can see her,
I
but
can
I
see
can't.
her.
Yeah, because she was in my class, I think, but I can't remember.
She started.
We had several CNOs too.
I think Rick's name was on the original class list.
The one that you got.
He left, and then she was like inputted there.
Yeah.
But that was really interesting from that standpoint. Yeah, going back to the 2-year leadership, there's a lot of different emotions that are going on, and that was what I was trying to talk to Mark about, because a lot of those people, men and women, are on a fast track. So they're focused on what their career is. They have a career plan also. And in a town, city like Lake City, the people that are living there are pretty much there for their life. I mean, that's where they grew up, where they want to be. This is their destination. And you come in as a 24-month fill the gap. It takes a special person on both sides to make that happen.
It does. And I know even for me, when I would go to different events or things like that, they would be like, oh, well, where do you live? And I'd say, well, I live in Gainesville. And it was kind of like, oh, because I wasn't one of them, and luckily having Shane on my side, that did help, because it was like, oh, she's good friends with somebody who was born and raised here. So she's good, But I think one of the other interesting things too, you're talking about the 2-year. So what was somewhat difficult with that position was that my quote unquote boss was actually a VP that was based at the division office in Tallahassee.
Okay.
So that's who I reported to. And then I had a dotted line to the CEO. So in the time I was there, I had 2 VPs in Tallahassee and 2 CEOs. So it's just, so you were learning a lot about, it was definitely a challenge. And so, but yeah, just getting people in that community to accept you so you can still do what you want to do, and, have that hospital support the community, because it's, the hospital does a great job of sponsoring things and just being there for the community, and talking about wellness initiatives and different things like that. So, but it is difficult just kind of getting immersed into a very small community, and just getting people to kind of trust you and to understand that you're there to, do a good job and, just move forward.
It's kind of cool having Jill Adams as the CEO now, because Jill was the COO and the CFO and is married to the community.
Right.
I mean,
very much so.
And such a huge part of the community, and has been for a long time. So it'll be interesting to watch that dynamics of how things shift and the ebb and flow of that as they go forward.
Right.
Look, we've talked for just about a half hour. We haven't got into half of the things that I want to talk about.
On your list.
So we'll jump back into that.
Okay.
And we'll take a break here in a moment. But there are a lot of things I want you to start thinking about. So I want to let's talk about the relationship between UF Health and UF, and also your experience of the Dale Carnegie program.
Okay.
When we come back. So we're coming to you live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill here at Celebration Point. and inside the Coaches Podcast Room. This is Motivation U, the podcast.
We still hear it. The sound of victory. The joy of being part of something great. And while things may not be the same right now, we haven't gone anywhere. If you bleed orange and blue, then Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Jeffrey, what are you doing?
Well, I'm joining the band, of course. Since Meldon Law is the official law firm partner of the Florida Gators, I want to help.
Dad, we're litigators. Let's stick to helping people in the courtroom.
Well, can we still hang out and jam a little bit? At Meldon Law, we won't back down.
Looking for more reasons to celebrate? We have them here at Celebration Point. Enjoy some of the newest additions to our already celebratory lineup, like Dave & Buster's, Les Macarons, and Prime and Pearl. There's always a reason to celebrate. Join us anytime for any occasion. Celebration Point, where Gators come to celebrate.
Welcome back to Motivation U, the podcast. Here from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill inside the Coaches Podcast Room. You find us at, what exit is that? 384. If you've never eaten, have you eaten here a few times?
I have. It's wonderful.
Oh,
They have great
goodness. This is an experience. And by the way, we have a new producer. Jared Barron is our new producer, and he also works here at Spurrier's in the so if you like the work, maybe you get a discount on a shirt or something like that, or maybe you get that visor you bought. Maybe he can find somebody to sign it for you. Might not be Coach, but there's a lot of guys around here that sign their names just like him. So, we could have some fun. But anyways, welcome, Jared. I'm glad you're here. We're going to miss Tammy Wynn. We have her for another month, but then she moves on. But my guest today, Michelle Moore from UF Health. What is your new title at UF Health?
So I am the Director of Strategic Communications. So
what does that entail?
It entails a lot. Because I am... And UF Health is an interesting and very complex organization. So even within our marketing and communications division that we have, some employees are employed technically by Shands and some employees are employed by UF. So because UF Health is the umbrella name, but it's not, and it doesn't pay anyone. So it's either UF or it's still Shands, but we're under the UF Health umbrella.
So tell me that.
So
what is the connection between the university and the hospital and UF Health?
So UF Health is made up of the two the two teaching hospitals, so one here in Gainesville and one in Jacksonville, and then several specialty hospitals. Some of those here in Gainesville, and then there's additional hospitals in Jacksonville. Plus, we also have hospitals in Leesburg, a hospital in Leesburg, and in the Villages, and then now Scripps down in Jupiter. It's part of UF Health as well.
Wow.
But so it's not just the hospitals, it's also the health colleges. So College of Veterinary Medicine, College of Dentistry, College of Nursing, College of Medicine, health professions.
All fall under UF Health.
Yes.
And
yes.
So if you were drawing a corporate tree, would University of Florida be at the top?
Correct.
And then UF Health falls underneath it.
Correct.
Which is the medical end of it. And then there's probably
the colleges, and then there's so at the top is the president of the University of Florida, and then the overarching, so UF Health has a senior vice president for health affairs. That's Dr. Dave Nelson. And so Dr. Nelson reports to the president of UF.
Okay.
So Dr. Nelson is over the hospitals and the health colleges and the institutes and centers.
Wow.
And so there's usually, obviously the hospitals all have CEOs or COOs, and then the colleges have deans. So those CEOs and those deans all report up to Dr. Nelson. So
Complex.
that's how it works.
And so your role
is so even though I'm employed by Shands, we do a little bit of it. We do internal communications for the hospital here in Gainesville, which includes some of the specialty hospitals. So the Children's Hospital, Heart and Vascular Hospital, the Cancer Hospital, Neuromedicine Hospital. So we do internal communications for those hospitals. But we also then do emergency preparedness planning and issues management and different things for all of UF Health. So I might be working hand in hand with some of the directors of communication at one of the health colleges, and so I will provide them with information that is for UF Health Global, and
Wow.
they help me disseminate that. So I get to work for kind of all of UF Health, and but we're still kind of closer to the hospital and do a lot more for specifically for the hospitals and the employees here.
That's fascinating. How many people are in your department?
Oh, wow. I would say probably close to between 60 and 80. So I'm not really sure what the total is, but that includes web services. That includes our creative services team. So graphic designers, photographers, videographers. And then we have external relations, which includes media relations, because that's a huge component of what we do. And then, the people in strategic communications, we have an entire marketing team. And then, like I said, the people who do marketing and PR for the different colleges, then for the different institutes. So it's a huge division.
Undertaking of
And then we
that.
have a chief communications officer over all of that.
Man, that is just it's incredible, because the plan has to be for everybody. It's not like one division.
Right.
It's got to be the entire plan.
And sometimes people can get a little siloed within what they do and can't see, the forest for the trees, if you will. But there's several things that we work on that is for all of UF Health. So
I don't think most people, maybe that's an overstatement. I don't think most people really understand, I know I didn't, the complexities of a university like the University of Florida. And we look at them, if we're sports fans, we look at the top 25, we look at this and talk about national championships. What it goes into running an entire university like that is amazing. And I've had people from the utilities department in my classes and hear those stories where they're like running a city.
right. It is. It's like University of Florida is its own city.
And then I've had people from the athletic department, which is not a part of the university, which is, that I've got to get somebody on one day to explain
To
that
explain
whole
all
thing.
that. Well, and that's the thing. So people with UF, they're state employees, where I am not a state employee.
Amazing.
So, but we all work under UF Health. So I know it confuses people, a lot, but there's more than 30,000 employees of UF Health with between faculty and staff and employees. It's a big,
It's crazy.
It's an enterprise.
It is. It is.
But like you were saying, even with the top 25, for sports and things like that, UF is in top 5 of public universities. And so that's something that's very important to them. Well, UF Health plays a role in that because obviously all the different things that happen within the academic health center helps UF attain that top 5 public university ranking.
And it's important to universities like UF to continue that. I know, I split my allegiance between UF and University of Michigan, those two areas, and my daughter graduated from both schools. That it's vitally important to Michigan that they stay. To us fans, it's more important that our team wins on Saturday. But for 99% of the people up there, it's more important where the university is in the standing amongst the other ones academic-wise. So that's. Us fans fight that all the time in a way of frustration because they'll make decisions that are based not on a football team.
Oh, right.
They'll make decisions based upon the school.
What's best for the school.
And when I look at the rankings of the SEC, and you see Vanderbilt, always at the top. UF's always right there, number 2. It's as far as academics are concerned, and
it's
thank
definitely
goodness
something
for
that's
Ole Miss and
important.
Mississippi State. Somebody's got to pull up the back end, don't they? That was a little jab for my stepdaughter Megan and her husband Nick, who are huge Ole Miss fans. So
Okay.
it was just a little fun there.
Well, I have to say they have an entertaining coach, and actually probably even more fun to follow on Twitter instead of Lane Kiffin is Juice Kiffin, which is the dog.
I've never.
He has his own Twitter account, and it's hysterical to see what Juice is up to.
I'll have to check that out now. I'll have to check.
Yeah.
Let's roll over to Dale Carnegie training. You were a graduate. You went through your high school, went through college, worked, and then a different part of your life, somebody came to you and said, you're going through this program. You really didn't have a choice. Everybody in leadership at Lake City Medical Center was going to be involved in this program. What was it like going through it, and what have you utilized since then, in the last 9 years?
Well, I think it's interesting because I know for me, I am, if you in Myers-Briggs, I'm an extrovert, so I've never really been afraid to speak in front of people or, different things like that. And I've always, I was in student government. I was in, even just different things where I was in front of people. And so I thought, this will be easy for me, and it was a little bit more intense than I ever realized, and intense in a good way because, it's not just public speaking. It is so much about growth within yourself. And for us, what was nice, by doing it as a leadership group was that we could all grow together. And we connected so much as a leadership team because of Dale Carnegie. But it was just, learning some of the different principles. And I had taken actually a Stephen Covey class back in my early days after I graduated from college. And so just having a little bit of that knowledge and then moving into Dale Carnegie. But, I think it's so important just listening and just some of the principles that are there. Right. And they're not these crazy principles. It's basic life skills, smiling, listening, telling the truth, and just being supportive and growing within yourself. And so just keeping those at the core of who you are. And I learn something new every single day. I try to grow every single day. And I've seen myself change, as a leader, throughout it, and I'm very thankful that I was able to go through the class and recommend it to everyone. So definitely sign up for it.
Well, Michelle, you mentioned how you were an extrovert, an A personality, that, your mom and dad were, and that's just the way you were. And then you're put into a room with 20 other people, some of who are the most introverted
Correct.
of introverts.
Yes.
And we start learning how our being an extrovert actually impacts negatively sometimes the introvert. So we learn how to deal with different people, and then we get to watch them grow, which is
Oh, it was
my
amazing.
favorite thing is when there's somebody that on the first day of class can't even stand up in front of the class and give their name. And then you get to like week 5, 6, 7. Sometimes it takes until week 8, and they're up there they own the room. They have built up that confidence to be able to communicate to people in any setting.
Right.
But that, so you coming from that extrovert world, it had to be eye-opening to see people that just struggled to even get through that.
I think it helped me become more empathetic, hands down. And you became a huge cheerleader too. And like you said, I think it did help me. You have to treat each person individually, and it's not just a blanket one size fits all. And I definitely learned that, and so I could kind of tone down myself to help other people, because I'm just going to say hello to everybody and talk your ear off. And, I realized that sometimes that's not what some people needed. And so I could see that and learned what made others tick, and that really helped me. And I think I became more compassionate, more empathetic, and just a better communicator because of the different communication styles.
I get a lot of individuals that I interact with that are very extroverted, and I try to encourage them to participate in a program, especially like at a corporate level where they're on a team and they go tell their boss, I don't need that class, I'm not. And I try to talk to them, and many times they won't take it. They just like, I don't need that stuff. I'm outgoing. I don't need that. But as we learn, the mind works in pictures, right?
And it's you learn so much about yourself.
And think about a car. Remember back in the older days when cars left a huge trail of exhaust. That car went down the road, and their eyes were forward. They didn't see that huge, ugly, smelly exhaust that everybody behind them had to live with. And there are many extroverts that are in companies and organizations that are like that car. They walk through the halls, and their eyes are out in front of them, and everything's big and cool, and people tend to like them. And then when they leave this trail of, ugliness at times, that people have to deal with. And those individuals learn how to change that behavior also.
Right. No, I totally agree.
How to cope with other individuals. You guys used to start your morning huddles with a principal, and
No, yeah, wow.
Remember those days?
Yes. Yeah.
They still do that at times there.
Okay.
Jill was telling me that they have still some meetings, and some of the department heads still do that, which is kind of cool. You left the medical industry for a few months to work for a law firm.
Correct.
What were the differences from going to professionals, industries, medicine and law, and what did you see as a change? Not as much as the firms in the hospitals themselves, but dealing with law, dealing with medicine.
Very, very different things. It was something where I've been in healthcare for so long that I understood healthcare. I kind of, knew what was going on there, where the legal field was a whole new ballgame, and trying to understand all of that, it was a lot. And so I had to definitely read up and try to learn some of even just terminology that I just wasn't familiar with.
Wow.
So that was a huge change. But I had, very wonderful attorneys that I got to work with. And, but I think for me, the biggest thing was, because it was a smaller firm, but it's still, a good sized firm here in Gainesville. But I was so used to corporate structure. And I think I learned a lot about myself because that's where I thrive. I know some people don't want to work in a corporate environment at all. And I learned about myself that that's what I enjoy. And I never thought I would say it, but I missed healthcare.
Because you went to really an entrepreneurial
Correct.
Atmosphere.
And I got to learn so much just from, the partners there and just their personalities. And plus they had done things where they were part of a leadership group through, the legal firm, and some of the different things that they learned there. I got to go and experience a couple of things through this group called CRISP. It's in Atlanta, and they do have different tracks for not only partners, but administrative assistants and marketing and paralegals and a leadership track. And so it was wonderful to be able to do things like that. And they did different personality type tests, and we got to see, you were given like what your partner's results were and then what yours were, and really could see how, your interactions and the differences and things, and just what, everybody, how they reacted to different things. And so that was, I really, enjoyed being able to do that. But through them, I was just able to see more of a community side of things. And, like I said, it wasn't corporate at all. It was just, hometown law firm, but they are doing such a good thing, and they have offices, in 4 different locations. And
that was,
so,
it's Meldon Law. I mean, I
Meldon
don't
Law.
mind.
Yeah.
No,
Jeffrey and Carrie are wonderful. Yeah.
and sponsor this program, Jeffrey and Carrie and Jeffrey and just the incredible people that are there.
Yeah, they're wonderful people that work in that firm for sure.
When you look at, I think after this next class there will be 14 of the employees have gone through the Dale Carnegie class, which is, you see the shift in the way they communicate with each other. But one of the things that just has always intrigued me is, people never know when they're going to need a lawyer.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so true.
People never know when they're going to need a hospital.
Right.
And, whereas if you're selling cars or you're marketing to somebody that's going to buy a car today, how do you, in your marketing world, how do you approach that?
I think that's one place where the two kind of merge. Because I know at the law firm, so many of the new clients are through referrals. Referrals is kind of like the number one way. And also, with hospitals, it's word of mouth. You're going to trust, because we can do is all the advertising and provide, create brochures and have websites, and all of that is a part of it. But it's definitely, you go to somebody and somebody that you trust, and it's like, hey, I need somebody for a personal injury, lawsuit. I need somebody, I've got to have this procedure done, or I need a cardiologist. Where should I go?
Right.
And you're going to listen to, you'll do your research and to back it up, but you're going to listen to a referral from a friend or a loved one. And so that's how, whether it's the legal field or a hospital,
more difficult to target.
It's still the same, but it is. So you want to, that's the thing, I think. And another thing that's the same is you want all of your employees to be ambassadors, because being out and speaking highly of your employer, it's like your little elevator speech that you can give. Because, if you're standing in line at the grocery store and you're saying really positive things about the place you work, somebody might overhear you, and that's going to possibly
that.
win them over, impact
Right.
them. Where if you're standing there and you're saying something negative, that's also
do the
going
same
to do
thing.
the same
It's
thing,
gonna-
and that's not something that you want.
No,
And
that's-
so, you want your employees to be ambassadors, no matter what company it is, but because that also helps build that referral base.
As business people, the hospital, UF Health is, I mean, they want patients to come. I mean, that's important to them. But at the law firm, you're running a business, a little bit different there. We want our advertising, our marketing, to target people that will bring results today.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you're selling groceries at Publix or whatever you're doing. You want what I advertise. But branding is so important.
Oh, very much.
In the medical field and in the law field, that it's difficult to balance those two. How did you do that for your short time at the law firm? I mean,
Well, that was one thing, and I think that it attracted me to Meldon Law in the first place because they had a really strong brand. Their partners, they're the official personal injury law firm of the Florida Gators, and so and then UF Health is also has a partnership with the University Athletic Association, and so. And I joked that apparently I only work for places that have affiliations with the Gators. So, so Meldon Law had such a strong brand already within the community. And so, we realized, okay, we've got the brand and people know about us, but they don't know what we do. And so that was something that we had started working on with Josh Howard, the director of marketing there. And, he's going to do a fabulous job leading, the marketing efforts. But it was, okay, now let's come up with things where we want to tell people, if you need an attorney for this, call us. We're here for you. And, the slogan is, we won't back down, based off of the Tom Petty song.
Yes.
And so that's something that's really important, but it's also, you want to try to distinguish yourself too, because you don't want to be like every other attorney commercial or billboard, bus that's out there. You want to try to do something that's going to make you unique, but still tell the people the information that they need to know.
the memorable, that whatever it is that
It's the hook you're trying to.
that brings the people in. That's so. Going forward, you start back at UF Health on Monday.
Correct.
What are your first steps? What are you looking forward to? And, what is the future of UF Health as it moves forward?
So UF Health is growing just by leaps and bounds, and there's always different things going on. We're growing into Ocala. There's a neighborhood hospital that they're building there. There's also the connection through the World Equestrian Center. So there's always different things that are going on. There's things in Jupiter, there's growth in Jacksonville, and, there's always expansion, in Gainesville. So that's something where there's always going to be new things to tell our employees about, new things to tell the public about, and plus just the phenomenal healthcare that you can receive, because they continue to be part of U.S. News and World Report, the top rankings and stuff. And so combined adult and children's hospitals, it's one of the best hospitals, in the state of Florida. So I'm looking forward to that. But I think some of the first things, obviously, is luckily I get to work with two people that were on my team. And so there's a new person. So
Okay.
I've got to meet her and get to know her, and then just, go back in and establish some things. And so they've actually filled in some openings that were in the division. And so I'll be able to concentrate a little bit more on strategic communication. So I'm excited. And the woman that I report directly to, she's amazing. She's one of those leaders that you just, you have so much respect for. And I so enjoy, working with her. And so, I'm excited just to kind of to get back into it and see what's happened.
Well, I wish you luck, and I appreciate you
you.
being here today with us.
Thank you so much.
One of the things I'd love to see in the future, if you want to talk to people, is a UF Health build a big hospital in Tallahassee. I'd love to see that. That
Sure.
would be, wouldn't that be fun? Right
yeah.
on campus, this orange
Make it
and
just
blue.
orange and blue,
Yeah.
definitely.
Anyways, we've got, I want to thank Michelle Moore from UF Health for being here with us today, talking extremely interesting. I learned so much. I was jotting down notes the whole time, just trying to understand everything that is going on. We have a class coming up. You can still register here in Gainesville, Alachua County. We'll have some coming in Lake City, Valdosta, Jacksonville. There's more on the way. Just go to jacksonville.dalecarnegie.com. Hit find a course, find the one near you, go ahead and register, do everything online. Thank you again, Coach Spurrier, and this marvelous restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. Inside the Coach's Podcast room at Celebration Point, this has been Motivation U, the podcast.